cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Back after a little bit of a break last week, not from life and work and travel and all that sort of stuff, but from the podcast for sure. So we're kind of start kicking it back into gear. And today's show, we actually have Chelle from Passages from the Heart. She's got a wonderful podcast, YouTube channel. There's going to be links in the description for those. And we actually talked a lot about the boat market, what's going on with boats being sold, whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. You know, it was really interesting. If anybody out there was looking at boats back in the 2020 to 2022 time frame, a lot of boats were very expensive. It seemed like everybody was trying to buy them and grab them up. And now, you know, between Trout the Landfish, Aton, friend of the show, Brett and Marissa, I know quite a few people that have sold or are selling their boats, and this includes Chelle. She has a beautiful, beautiful compact 25 that there'll be a link in the description for that one. She's got that one up for sale right now. And yeah, it was kind of interesting. I do not and have not had the I typically don't go on to Yacht World to see what the prices are and what boats are for sale. But recently I did start going back on there just to check it out. You know, I got Sparrow. I want to stick with Sparrow. I love that boat, and I never want to be one of those people that owns multiple boats. I just, one boat is enough for me. I'll tell you that much. That's enough work for one person. But yeah, it was kind of interesting because Chelle has bought and sold quite a few boats, so she has a lot of experience with this. And yeah, really interesting to get her take on what the market's doing and some of her tips for not only if you're selling a boat, but where to look for a boat and what sites to use. So big thanks to Chelle coming on the show, and hopefully you will enjoy it. As for this podcast, like I always say, if you want to help support it, check out some of the links in the description, everything from becoming part of the Patreon family. Thank you all so very much. To one-time donations. We got the merch, all the things you can get. We still have a couple of tickets left for next week's show, and that's going to be in Indianapolis on October 2nd. And yeah, sailingintoOblivion.com if you want to reach out to the show, coaching, consulting, sailing, anything, or if you want me for a speaking event. It looks like I'm going to be down in Florida, hopefully, for some of this winter, and definitely already have some speaking things coming up in this winter. 2026, crazy. I can't believe 2025 is almost over. It has just been full throttle. Anyway, hopefully you enjoy the show, and thanks for listening. All right, Chelle, welcome back to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Captain. Always a pleasure to be in your presence. Thank you so much.
Oh, no. Pleasure is all on my side of the screen over here. Well, as we were just saying, before we started recording this, it's a very interesting time in the yachting community, as it does seem like a lot of people are selling boats, yourself included. And just a few years ago, it seemed like sailboats were going for these astronomical numbers. People were paying out the nose. Everybody wanted a boat, and now it's completely changed.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I think back in, it was probably 2020, early 2020, when I was right before COVID kind of became a thing. I had just kind of started looking. We actually had a power boat at that time that we were looking to get into sailing again, because, I grew up sailing, and I just couldn't help but seeing all the boats sailing, sailboats out on the lake, just feeling very nostalgic and just wanting to get back out on the water in a sailing vessel. But as the search sort of progressed throughout the year, as you know, things just got nuts.
Yeah.
Brokers that I would reach out to, I wouldn't hear from. And then when I would finally hear from them, it was just, they were just talking about how they just couldn't keep up. It was just crazy. And then, like you just mentioned too, the prices, man,
Oh, it's
I mean,
crazy.
there would be like a 50-year-old boat for sale, and the price that they were asking was, you just were like, whoa. But people were paying it,
Yeah.
because they
I don't.
wanted to get, they wanted to get out there. And so anything that it took, I mean, I remember calling about boats from like the late 60s even, and like they were, gone like within a day or two. And then now it's crazy too, because I have been keeping an eye on the market. I'm going to say probably like the last 9 months or so. I use a tool, the Search Tempest tool, which takes all of eBay listings. It compiles eBay listings. It compiles Craigslist across the U.S. And then it also compiles Facebook Marketplace listings.
Oh,
And so
wow.
it's kind of a quick, concise way to look at the market from the for sale by owner perspective, as
Yeah.
opposed to like if you go to yachtworld.com,
And the
boats.com.
brokers and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
And the thing that I kind of learned, and we talked about actually I have two boats for sale. Yeah, I know. What I learned is that some of those more popular kind of commercial websites like boattrader.com and boats.com and yachtworld.com is that some of them, I believe, you can only list if you're a broker. So like yachtworld.com, for example, you have to be a broker to list your boat for sale.
I did not
You
know
can't,
that. Okay.
yeah, you can't be for sale by owner. However, I believe it's boattrader.com. I always kind of mix that one up with boats.com. Actually, I think both of them you can list for sale by owner on those two, but not on yachtworld.com. And then there's a new website. Actually, there's two new websites. There's one that kind of, I think, came out last year called Yacht-er. So it's yacht, the letter R.com. That the word on the street I heard last summer from the broker we were working with was that because Yacht World's prices were astronomically high to list, like he was telling me he had like fees of $5,000 a month. So just to
Really?
list
Just to list it. Oh my
just to
gosh.
list.
I had no idea.
I don't know how many boats that was that he had, but he's was selling power boats as well as power yachts as well as sailboats. But yeah, $5,000 some dollars a month. So now why when you
Yeah.
buy from a broker you got to maybe pay a little more, right? But anyway, so he found out about this new company called yachtr.com and was trying to scale back from Yacht World to get into yachter.com. Not only because I think the fees were less, but also because apparently from the end user's perspective, like you and me sitting on this side of the computer,
Yeah.
we saw less pop-up ads. It was supposed to be kind of a more pleasant experience, and I do think it's a nice website. I haven't really been on it much lately because there just is not as many listings there as there are on boattrader.com, boats.com, and yachtworld.com.
Which one is sort of your go-to if you're perusing and you're in the market and looking for a boat?
Yeah, for sure. I first go to yachtworld.com and I search because there's a lot of parameters that you can search by region, whether it's statewide or like East Coast, West Coast, Great Lakes area, or abroad outside of the U.S. So I like to kind of always narrow my focus in on the Great Lakes region, just because that seems to be the most maritime-y area with respect to where actually we both are, I would say. So I usually go to there, but again, that's broker listings, and then from there you can kind of gauge. You can, like, for example, if you're looking for a Catalina 28, you can, look to see what they're going for, what year that the boat is, and kind of get an idea of what the broker is going to ask for that. But then you can then go to the boats.com or boattrader.com or start hitting up Facebook Marketplace or start hitting up Craigslist or whatever, and then go search for those same boats to see what they're going for when they're for sale by owner. And you can kind of go ahead.
Do they on Facebook Marketplace? I mean, I assume they have like small boats and like Flying Scots and things like that. But do they have like, would you find like West Sail 32s on Facebook Marketplace?
Sure.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
sure. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be in full disclosure. I am having a little problem with my Facebook account, so it's a little difficult for me to get onto that use that search strategy. But I can sometimes use a little tomfoolery or fakery to still see what's for sale, but it doesn't always show me everything. The way they have it listed, sometimes you can't see all the pictures, or they bring up a big, you must log into Facebook to see more sort of a thing. So sometimes I hit that roadblock, but if that happens, I end up always reaching out to a friend who I know is really active on Facebook, and I'll say, hey, can you check this listing out for me? And then he'll screenshot it and send me give me the deets on it, so to speak. But yeah, I mean, Facebook, I would say, when I can see it, most of the listings that I seem to find there are really old boats, like I'm saying 70s, some 80s. You don't really see, like, it's not like you're going to see a 2019 Safié there or something, or if you, very rarely would you. But older boats, and it seems to me smaller boats. So not so much a boat for cruising, but, if you want to hop on and do get a laser or a sunfish. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Okay.
Yeah. And the same I would say is true when I look at Craigslist, because that's really kind of more my go-to for sale by owner type stuff. You see a lot of older models there as well, but you do come across some blue water cruisers there. And, what's funny is something else that I've kind of noticed phenomenon-wise with people selling boats is that, it used to be like when you would sell a car or a boat, you would like almost get it like detailed, right? It would be like perfect. So you'd take the pictures, and every picture was of a gleaming hull,
fully waxed, gorgeous.
The little dinette is set up with the plates and the wine glasses, and everything is just totally, But now it just seems like, people are like, the first mate and I were looking at some ads yesterday, and like there's a shot of the V-berth, and it's somebody's like comforter with some pillows and sheets kind of lifted up so you can sort of see and I'm thinking, okay, this is kind of like, usually with the brokerage ads, you don't see as much of that, but it just kind of, it's just like when you sell a house, you don't want a lot of clutter in the pictures, because you want to be able to see yourself in that boat, how you would live in the cabin and utilize, the cabinetries and all like the burrs and where the navigation station, all that,
Oh, definitely. But if it's all, you want to kind of have that. You want to be able to spark the imagination,
Exactly.
And I do see on some, and I don't look at very many of these. I mean, I was obviously pouring through Yacht World and Boat Trader back before I bought Mighty Sparrow. I was doing that for like 2 years, just constantly watching prices, and I was looking for a very specific boat. But yeah, every once in a while you come across some of these that they've got these idyllic pictures of the boat at anchor, in the Caribbean somewhere, or they've got the fancy dinner display with all the plates and the just to make it look really like, oh, this is what you're buying here, not just
I
this
could
boat.
Have that.
Yeah,
that could
right.
Be me. Yeah.
You got to kind of summon your inner advertising person,
Yes. Yeah, it's weird though, because now you just, like I said, it's just people don't even, I mean, I noticed that with cars, like when you go to look at used cars, like they during COVID especially, they really weren't detailing them. It's just like dirty, dusty car you go to look at, and you're like, what? Do you want to sell this or not? And they're like, lady, I got 5 people behind you that want to see the car if you don't want this sort of thing. And the same thing used to be true with the boats too. But I am going to tell you, I do really think that if you're selling your boat, and I think if you're buying a boat, like I said, the less clutter, it's showing the boat really as it is without all of your uh, personalizations or like your daily living. Like, we don't need to see your Dinty Moore stew in the, I mean, you know what I mean? It's a
Yeah. Oh
pain
yeah.
because like when I took photos of my boats, it's like I'm moving everything out, like everything goes in the cockpit so I can do the V berth in the main saloon, and everything is shifting around. So it really takes a lot of time to set everything up properly. But I will tell you, one of the people, actually two of the people who reached out to me about my Compact 25, um, both said or remarked, your ad looked really good. Your pictures were really, really good. And it gave me a really great idea of what the boat is like. And, one woman was all, I feel like I could just buy it sight unseen based upon your photos.
Oh,
That's what you
nice.
really want
That's
to
what you're
go
going
for.
for. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Well, and I mean, that boat in particular is really, it's well cared for. It's clean. There's not a lot of wreckage as far as, big scrapes, scratches, all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. I mean, it's in fantastic shape. And so, yeah, you're just trying to show it off essentially and be like, yeah, this is what you're getting. And yeah, I mean, that boat, it's a, I don't want to say it's adorable, but it's adorable. I love that little boat.
She is really, that's what's so kind of neat about the boat is that it's really like a big boat, but in a little boat,
Yeah, yeah.
People say, well, 25 feet, that's not really a very, it's not a very big boat, but it's weird because that 25-foot boat to me feels more like a 27-foot boat or, 28
Oh,
foot boat.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, you go down below and you're sort of like, oh man, you could definitely
Yeah.
do these weekend trips and two people
Oh,
on
yeah.
there, no problem. I think it's great. Do they call it a pocket cruiser? Is that a term I think I've heard?
Well, it's kind of funny that term pocket cruiser because I see people use that for boats that are, those little, I don't know if they're called pea pens or little 14-foot. They literally look like a bathtub. There's another
Oh,
one
little
too.
pea pods. They
Yeah,
have those
maybe
up in
that's what it
Maine.
is.
Yeah.
It literally looks like a little Popeye boat. I can't think. There's another name. The guy that I bought my Compact Legacy from, which is 16 and a half feet, he wanted a smaller boat, and I'll have to look it up again what he had. But it's I think 14, maybe even 12. But they call those boats pocket cruisers too. So it's like when someone says pocket cruiser,
Right.
we could be talking a 12-foot boat up to like my size type of boat. But I do think people that I see using it tend to be describing a pocket cruiser as kind of like the Montgomery 17, the Compact Legacy or Compact 19. Um, there's some others that are kind of a Siren 17, a Sanibel 18. All of these boats, I think, that are kind of fit in. I would say that would be in my mind how I envision a pocket
Right.
cruiser. And with my boat, at least the 25 footer, I would call her a cruiser instead of a pocket cruiser, just because she does have an inboard engine. She has hot and cold pressurized water. Um, you know, I guess I wouldn't say a full galley because she does not have an oven, but she has a little cooktop or
Yeah.
port propane camping stove, I guess. Whereas like the Montgomery 17 or the Siren 17 or Santa, all those boats, they don't have a galley.
Yeah,
Um,
you've got to take like a jet boil on board
yeah,
or your
yeah,
own,
and
little tiny camping stove essentially.
yeah, it's think of a pocket cruiser. I would say in my mind is I feel like it's a tent, a tent that floats and you can sail. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like
right. No,
because
that
that's
makes
kind of
sense.
how you're living on the boat. Is you're like it'd be like living in a tent basically in those little cabins, which people do all the time and they
Oh
love
yeah.
it.
Well, we used to
Yeah.
have down at the Bitter End Yacht Club, we had J24s that were modified and the cockpit was basically extended, so they cut away at the cabin trunk. But I had seen and been on a J24 that someone had used for, overnight sort of destination sailing, and they had like the full bunk in there. and a little tiny thing to cook with, and I couldn't
Yeah.
believe it. And I mean, that's a boat that you have to like crawl into, obviously. So
Yeah.
it's not like luxurious or anything, but it is pretty amazing what you can cram into a little tiny boat. Or the Contessa.
Oh yeah.
What is it? The Contessa 26.
The one that Tanya Abbey sailed on around the world. Yeah.
Yeah, those things.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, they're so small. I was fortunate enough to check one out down in Beaufort,
Can you hear
South
me still? I think I
Carolina
might have
years
lost
ago,
you.
and oh my gosh, like I'm standing.
You're
Well, I'm
all.
not
I don't.
standing in it. I'm like hunched over, and I'm kind of thinking, how on earth could you ever sail this thing, across an ocean? And people do all the time. It's amazing.
Well, isn't it? You may know this better than me. I'm betting is John Kretschmer. Didn't he have a Contessa 31? There was some. It
Contessa
was
32, I think it is.
yeah,
That's
and I don't think you could stand up in that boat either. I
No,
don't
you
remember.
can't.
Yeah.
I've been on one of those before. The thing about those boats, which he really likes, is how they perform, especially in heavier weather. They're really
Yeah.
sea kindly as far as they don't hobby horse. They slice through the waves, and they're so robustly built that they can handle, for like John did, going around Cape Horn in the opposite direction that
Oh
normally
yeah.
people would. But yeah, he did say
Right.
he always throws that caveat on. He's like, they were not designing this boat for comfort. And so you got to be ready for a really cramped little cabin, but it is in an absolutely tank of a boat
Yeah.
that also can sail really well. The West Sail is one of those things where the creature comforts are amazing on my boat. I mean, I've got plenty of headroom everywhere. I've got a nice big bunk, my choice of different areas to sleep. You've got a nice head, forepeak, a galley with everything, nav stay, all this stuff. But you give up because that hull shape and that how wide it is and all that, and the shape of the bow, you're not dealing with the most sea kindly boat in the world. And it doesn't take much to either roll it. I've been at anchorages where just the slightest little swell that's coming in, and that boat is like a pendulum. And just,
Oh wow.
you're like, holy cow, what's
Yeah.
going on here?
Wow.
But
It is interesting. Go
yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Well, there's always those pros and cons that come with any boat where, it might be really good at this, but then you're gonna give up some of the comfort here, or it's gonna be super comfortable, and then you're gonna have to give up on, some of the speed or performance. It's the way
Yeah.
of it.
Totally.
That's the way sailboats always are.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that so I think I told you, to make things a little even more interesting when it comes to selling a boat, I was actually in negotiation with trading my boat for another one.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So the deal is that this person who was interested in my Compact 25 had another compact that they were looking to not necessarily to sell, but he and his first mate were wanting a boat more like Solitude, the
Yeah.
Compact 25, a more of a cruising boat, and they had or have a Horizon Cat, Compact Horizon Cat, which is, as you probably guess, a cat boat, not a catamaran, because some people sometimes when you say cat boat, they think catamaran, but literally a cat boat with, the one single gaff rig sail. The beam is usually half the length. So like a 20-foot boat, you're probably close to a 10-foot beam.
Oh,
Usually
wow.
in cat boats, you don't have a keel. You have movable ballast, lead ignots, or I'm not sure how you say that, ignots, or I don't know.
Ignits.
They're
Yeah,
yes, they're
just
little
lead
bricks of
ballast,
lead.
the bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can imagine when people used to fish back in the day, right, on the East Coast, and they had these boats, they had to put their catch in, they'd have to move the ballast to compensate for the catch to keep the boat steady.
Yeah.
Well, this particular cat boat that this gentleman has is not a true cat boat because it has a keel, it has a shoal draft keel, also does not have a barn door rudder. It just has a spade rudder, like a kick-up foiled rudder,
Oh, okay.
which is highly desirable, foiled rudder in these little boats, I think, especially.
A little more performance oriented. Because,
Yeah.
those barn door rudders, when you look at them, because there's a few of those boats up in Maine. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a huge, it's huge, and it goes aft really far from the boat.
It does.
And you're just thinking like, geez, that can't be really hydrodynamic. I don't think.
It's crazy because you think about how many years people utilize those sorts of vessels successfully.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I'm going to tell you, I actually almost did buy, it was a Herrschaft. It was actually, I take that back. I think it was a Marshall Sanderling, which is an 18-foot true cat boat. So the barn door rudder and, like a 10-foot beam. Actually, no, I'm sorry. It was, I think, 18 feet, so 9-foot beam probably. And no keel. And I decided against it because I started kind of worrying about that movable ballast. I thought, I don't know, I just call me crazy, I guess, because I grew up sailing on keel boats. So
yeah, I like that fixed keel. I like a really heavy ballast boat I suppose it does really, you have to take into account what you're planning on doing with the boat.
Exactly.
For me, my intention is always to be able to go out and cross oceans and be offshore. So I'm really always looking for something that can handle when the weather, gets pretty ugly. I mean, I'm staring down again, leaving Maine in November this year to get the boat down to Florida. And, I'm thinking this time, rather than do the offshore route, I'll do a little more coastal.
You're going to do the ICW?
Not the ICW. I would basically just stay in between the Gulf Stream and the East Coast. And, it's just one of those things where, for sure, leaving Maine, I'm going to definitely head for the Cape Cod Canal, just to cut out going around Cape Cod and the dangers of like George's Bank and all that. But once you get south of that, then you've got a pretty good wide expanse until you get to Cape Hatteras. So you can still be, 80 or 100 miles offshore. And then you've got that pinch point at Hatteras, or, you could ideally go across the stream if the weather is good. Then you're a few hundred miles offshore heading south, and then you cut back into Florida. But it's going to be kind of interesting. But it is one of those, when I think back to 2022 and leaving, November 14th from Maine and just heading straight offshore, it's no wonder I found myself in such bad weather. I mean, I think I went through 4 different low pressure systems in, the first 2 weeks or something when I was out there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was just one after another. Boom, boom, boom.
So you were just, I mean, I know you've talked about this in all other podcasts, but I'm trying to remember. You were there with the Marie Tharp not too long ago. And this wasn't it like 400 miles?
Yeah,
offshore?
out at the New England Seamounts. Thankfully, that was in July, so super calm.
Okay, but it was the same area where that 2022 occurred, right?
Definitely within 100 miles or so, I think.
Wow, yeah.
I think I was a little further out, but it was the reason we were in that spot was that, the Gulf Stream predominantly has these big swirling eddies right there that kind of, as the stream heads off into the Atlantic, heading off to the northeast, right there on that kind of corner, you get all these spin-offs. And that was part of the research that we were doing there. But it also, it presents this very challenging, very unpredictable area. So if the weather does go south and you're in that area, it's really hard to accurately negotiate those currents. No matter what the forecast is telling you, it's like a little micro
climate in that area.
Like a microclimate, if you will, in that area. So and everything's happening in real time, and things are changing, and the swirls are moving. So it's
weren't you using like some sort of software to kind of see where the eddies were? I thought you remember you talking about that.
I just use Luck Grib, which is just like Windy, just like I don't know. Predict Wind. Predict Wind definitely has all the best bells and whistles. They've probably got the most interesting like routing software and stuff, but they're all getting their information from the same places. You've got the NOAA satellites, and then you've got the GFS, which is the American one, and then you've got the European models. And so you could download all those using the Iridium Go. And this was the first time I had the Iridium Go. So along with that, I could also download the forecast models for the currents in the Atlantic Ocean. And mostly I was just looking at the Gulf Stream. And I think they do an okay job when it comes to the actual main part of the stream. But these eddies are just so unpredictable that, it's anybody's guess. And we found that out, that there were a lot of times where we were able to look at the forecast, what it's telling us. And in real time out there, we were realizing that we were being pushed in different directions. And so it was basically wrong. And
interesting.
And I did not know that in 2022. And I took it as gospel, and I was like, all right, I'm going to worm my way through these eddies. And unfortunately it was in, a gale essentially. And even though I was running before it, what I failed to sort of realize is that, the forecast for that current could be wrong. And also, if these eddies are happening north of my position where the main part of the stream was, if waves get built up there, they're still going to reach me eventually. So there's a lot of mistakes, but a lot of good lessons learned on that voyage for sure.
It's
trying to heat it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I don't know, like getting back to what we talked about with John Kretschmer's Contessa, whether a boat like that would have done any differently in that situation. It's all, I don't know. It sounds pretty wild though, because, it also made me think of something, getting back to cars, is that, when you use your map app or whatever, if you're driving, like when we drive up to Lake Superior, for example, and it's an 8-hour drive, you can look and see where the congestion is, or it'll say if there's an accident, you can see the little caution, and then people can report in as they're driving by, this is clear, or because it has a little
has a little thing you can tap.
It's almost like you wish that, not that there's going to be a lot of people in that same area where you were at the time, but if there had been somebody in the area at the time, they could have been like, no, this forecast is wrong. Or if you could have like tapped on something and said, no, this is not what the conditions are. The conditions are like this,
Right.
I mean, it would not be, I guess, realistic, because most people there's not enough people experiencing those moments. But, don't they have buoys out there though? I thought they have, probably not a lot of them, but.
There's like the Georges Bank buoy, the Gulf of Maine buoy. There definitely are quite a few. Unfortunately, a lot of them, get run over and stuff like that by ships. And eventually, these things, like, I think it was 1982 when there's a book called Fatal Forecast, which details the sinking of the Sea Fever and these offshore lobster boats. And one of the issues that they had was that the NOAA buoy out at Georges Bank was like malfunctioning, and they were still putting out forecasts, and they weren't telling anybody that, this buoy's actually not operational. And, all these fishermen went out there, and essentially in like 24 hours, it was basically blowing 100. And,
oh my God,
some of these boats went down, and it's an amazing survival story, because a guy named Ernie Hazard was the only survivor from this vessel, and he ended up in a life raft and survived for I don't know how long, but he was basically in his underwear, and this is like November, I think, or October. So it's freezing cold, and I don't know. It's an amazing book, but it's definitely a good cautionary tale of that whole region around Cape Cod. When it gets ugly, that place can turn into an absolute nightmare for sure.
What is the name of the book again, Jerome?
That one's called Fatal Forecast.
Fatal Forecast. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll
and
have
they
to read
ended
that.
up, families of the deceased sailors on that ended up suing. I believe they sued NOAA, and they won initially, and then it got appealed and overturned because they were like, shoot, we can't set this precedent. But it is one of those things where I think if they have malfunctioning equipment, they definitely let people know instead of just be like, well, we should be all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at any rate, I know I sidetracked you on
no.
2020,
hey,
but
that's what the podcast is all about. No, it's all good. Well, and one little side note though, because you were talking about how people comparing it to the driving apps and stuff. The Grand Banks fleet, the sword boats and stuff like that. One of the things they talk about in the Perfect Storm was, when the Andrea Gale, that boat was actually headed back to Gloucester while the rest of the fleet were still out fishing, hundreds of miles to the west. And they would relay because the weather patterns are all moving west to east. And so I think that the last communication from Captain Billy Tyne was, it's coming on and it's coming on strong. And that was like the last thing. Yeah. So it's like haunting. I got like goosebumps.
I do too.
What they saw in that storm, I can't even imagine.
I can't even imagine either. It's frightening, but it's like you said. I mean, it just goes to show you forecasts aren't always obviously accurate, and there's always a risk when we put ourselves in this position.
Oh yeah.
That actually reminds me too of something I heard somewhere about who was it? Some famous sailor. I don't think it was Bernard Montpensier. I can't. Maybe it was Sir Robert Knox Johnson. Somebody had said something about how all you can really do is just be as prepared as you can be, and then you just gotta ride it out. Sometimes it's just the best thing you can do is just be prepared. And I mean, I don't know. That can be true whether you're on the ocean or
on a lake. I mean, anywhere.
Yeah, anything.
I always think that's one of the cool parts about sailing is that you don't need to cross an ocean to have a really crazy adventure or deal with some pretty adverse weather. I mean, you can have a pop-up thunderstorm.
That happened to me as a kid.
Oh, really?
We were on a little Windrose 18 in the inland lake here, Corps of Engineer Lake. And that's exactly what happened. We left, and this was back in 1979 or 80, something like that. And I remember, it was just a picture perfect summer day. And, we didn't have phones or apps or any of that, obviously, back then. And we set out for a sail, and we sailed across to the other side of the lake, which is maybe, I don't know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles wide, not that big, but there's a nice little beach. And next thing you know, like clouds are rolling in and thunder starting to rumble. And my mom and my stepdad were trying to, we got into the boat, and it had a little outboard engine, and because of the wave action, this is crazy how fast this happened. The waves may have been like 3 or 4 feet, but maybe 5, I don't know. But it happened that fast where the water got so stirred up that the boat was hobby horsing so much that the engine couldn't stay in the water. So every time it would come out, I think that's called cavitation maybe, or something like that. And then we lost the mast. The mast came down. We didn't have the sails up, but the mast did come down.
Oh, jeez.
It was a little scary.
Compounding. Were you getting blown offshore or towards the shore?
I want to say we were heading into the wind when all this was happening.
Oh, okay.
Granted,
okay.
I was only like 10, so I was pretty little. I just remember we were only able to make it to the other side of the lake. We couldn't get back to the marina.
Yeah.
So we just beached the boat. But it was pretty scary. Like my stepdad was sitting on the outboard engine trying to put more weight onto it.
Yeah.
So we could have propulsion,
Right.
But
well,
anyway,
it is. It's really scary because I can remember, going in and out of a lot of these inlets down in Florida and stuff. It can get pretty dicey, and that's one of the things that West Sails are kind of famous for is they'll hobby horse if you're trying to head into some steep chop. But
Yeah.
it was actually years ago when I first pulled into a little town called Oriental in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And
Totally want
this,
to go there one day.
oh, it's the cutest little town, and I had never been there, and I did know that, you know, the harbor and stuff, it's not super protected. It does have a break wall, but if you're staying way deep in there at this little marina hotel, then you're totally protected, and that's where I had booked a slip. But
Okay.
as I'm heading over there and crossing, I think it's the Neuse River, Pamlico Sound or something, the winds are building up and getting really strong, and the waves start building up, and I get all the sails down, and I'm motoring in there. But as I'm motoring in, I'm looking at like the main dock system, and all these boats are just pitching and getting bounced around, and I'm like,
Ooh.
oh man, you know what? I'm gonna bail on this, and I do a quick little 180 in the channel, but I cannot move forward. The waves were only maybe 2, maybe 3 feet, but they were so steep, and there was like no wave period. It was just one after another. I was not going full out, but I was pretty hard on the engine, and I was standing still, and I was like, oh no, I'm committed. So I just, 180 around, and then I saw where my slip was, and I was like, oh, okay, good. But it's amazing when boats do that. You literally, like, you can't make headway in certain conditions under motor, and you just have to bite the bullet and go do something else.
That makes me think of when we were together this summer. I mean, different scenario, but if you remember, I think it was the last day,
the windy day.
And I was trying to back the boat out of the slip, and the wind was coming. I think the wind was coming from the quarter beam on the starboard side. Maybe I just remember it was different than the other 2 days we had left the slip.
Yeah.
And I think there was a moment in which things could have gone pretty disastrous had you not been there.
Well, it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of times you could spend so much time just doing docking and boat handling, because it's always tricky, and when the conditions are changing and everything, it's like, oh man, it's like a new challenge. You got to be like a Mensa candidate sometimes to be able to figure out what is going to be the best way to get off without, hitting anybody or anything. But no, you did a really good job. And I think we spent enough time on it. But it was one of those where I was kind of like, we could do more, but I really want to get out there and sail as well.
Yeah.
And I think
I know it's tough.
Yeah.
I think next time around, we should at least have, if anybody out there is considering hiring Jerome, definitely hire him, because that's what I mean. Like, getting back to like the scenarios, when you work with someone like yourself who has so much experience in different situations, it's easy to troubleshoot because you already have that sort of catalog in your mind of all these other experiences, and kind of knowing what to pull and implement. Whereas someone like us, we don't have that much experience, and so it's kind of hard to know, like, okay, like, what would I do? I mean, you kind of always eventually figure something out, but maybe it might not be the right decision.
Well, and I just want to fast track the knowledge and also be able to share, the mistakes that I made that I was able to learn from. If I can make it so you can just hurdle those without actually having to make the mistake, as long as you're still, I've always said that the best way to learn something is the hard way. You got to pay for a mistake you make, and that way you learn and you don't forget it. But and that's why I don't just sit there and say, okay, well, this is how you do a pivot turn, or even just demonstrate it. I mean, I made you guys do them, and you did great. And I think those things, those little challenges are always good when it comes to gaining that sort of experience and gaining the confidence. Those pivot turns are huge. I love putting people in that position in a crowded marina and being like, all right, we're going to do a 360, but we're not going to actually move the boat. And most people are pretty timid when I first throw that out there. But then once they do it, it's like, it's like, holy cow, I have a whole new bag of tricks now.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that example up, because when we were at the boat just a week or so ago, we were walking along one of the piers, and I even said that to Ben. I'm like, oh, that's where I did the pivot turn. Like,
yeah, right.
And I was like looking at it and like, gosh, that really wasn't a lot of room in there. That was pretty good that we did that,
Yeah.
So it was, but it definitely, I think it's good, because you're right. The confidence thing is important. And then it helps you, if you have the confidence, and I don't mean overconfidence. I mean, just, like a humble confidence, I guess, that, that, okay, this is a strategy that I have that I can implement at this particular time. I don't know. I'm really glad that we had that experience, because I definitely learned, and so did Ben. We learned so much about not just the boat, but just all those skills we could apply to the next boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but at any rate, getting back to the cat boat.
Yeah. We're kind of circling back. Totally cool. Totally cool.
He has this cat boat that he's interested in trading, and that. I think if you're selling a boat, could be a really cool thing if it works out. In fact, I had that in my ad, that I would be interested in a trade or potential trade. Okay. Yeah, I actually included that verbiage in my ad, and I listed a specific couple models, of which this boat was not one of them, but this boat was the big sister, or is the big sister to one of those two boats. So, and the attractiveness of it is that this particular cat boat has a hinged mast. So, and it's very easy to raise and lower without needing a gin pole or a crane, or actually it has a little built-in gin pole. So, but it's almost like raising a sail. Really, that's how easy it is.
Oh, that's good.
So, so it was pretty attractive, sort of, convenient sort of feature, but the deal ended up sort of not coming together because of various reasons. And I'm going to just let people know the main reason the deal didn't come together is because of distance. So this person is probably about, 10 hours away from where I am and where the boat is, roughly.
Yeah.
And so, I didn't get to see his boat in person. He didn't get to see our boat in person. And even though you can share videos and pictures until the cows come home, and it's still not ever going to be the same as if you're there in the flesh.
Yeah, you got to sit in the cockpit. You got to have your hand on the tiller and smell what it smells like down below.
Well, that's actually, I'm going to be honest with you. Don't overlook that, because
no, I know. You know who else is a big proponent of that is Colin Denker. He's like, when he was asking me about that West Sail, he was like, what does it smell like down below?
Did he really?
Yeah.
It's true, because we looked at last summer, before we bought Solitude, we looked at one of my dream boats. I have two.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about it. Oh, keep bumping this mic. Because I think it was on your Instagram or something like that you had found this boat that was the boat that you used to sail as a child, right?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, Jerome.
The dream.
Oh my gosh. I could do.
What type of boat is it?
So that boat is a Swedish-made boat. It was built by a company called Shipman, which was out of Sweden, which I think was purchased or bundled into, I think, Albin Marine somewhere along the line. And so the boat, although the model we had from 76 was a Shipman made boat, it was eventually most people know them as Albin Accent 26s. So it's 26 foot long, about a 9 foot beam, fixed fin keel, draws about 5 feet. Skeg, it's not a full skeg. I'm not sure what you call it. So it's spade rudder, but the belly of the boat, where the bilge of the boat is on the outside. I'm showing my lack of sailing.
No,
here.
That's all right.
But
is it a skeg hung rudder? Is that what you're trying to say?
It's not a skeg hung, because when I think of a skeg hung, I feel like that's the underside of the boat continues 4 of the rudder all the way down the four the leading edge of the rudder, in other words, is there's the main part of the boat is still there. Whereas with this, it's not quite like that. So I guess technically it's not, but it's not just a single spade rudder. There is a bit of protection for it. But,
Yeah.
so anyway, we were, so I had this boat. I had it from like when I was 6 to when I was 22. So I loved the boat. I could sail that boat by myself off the mooring, no problem. So this is why when we go to sail Solitude with you, I feel like an idiot because I'm like, well, all these years ago I could do this stuff, and now I feel scared about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, but time does that. If you're not constantly practicing stuff.
Well,
I'm always nervous when the first 24 hours or so when I'm headed offshore. I'm always kind of like, oh boy, what are we getting into here?
Yeah,
and
like
then,
when you step
then
off,
it all makes it easy.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, for me, it had been decades. So that was part of the problem too. But anyway, yeah, this boat is, it doesn't, I don't know. It doesn't have probably headroom to accommodate the first mate, but I don't even know if I could stand up in it. But there's just this, nostalgia.
Yeah,
and
the memories.
This romantic, I've talked about this with other sailor friends, is this romantic part of sailing that I think kind of captures our hearts in a way that is very difficult to sometimes articulate. But I think a lot of sailors share that experience and they know what you mean when you say that. But with this boat, I have that. And I saw it. It was so crazy. We were just driving on Madeline Island, which you can take a ferry over to from the mainland. And we came back from this little visit to the state park and, let's go check out the town of La Pointe and see what this is all about. And we're just driving. And all of a sudden I look over and there's this boat. And I said to Ben, I said, stop the truck. And immediately this visceral feeling came over me of just like, I'm like, you got to back the truck up now. And I was just in this almost a panic mode because I couldn't believe that this boat was right there. And you have to understand, there were like only 15 of them from what I was told that were imported into the United States. And they were all sold out of Minneapolis at a dealership, which has been long out of business.
Yeah.
So, and I found another boat like this, but 5 years ago on the East Coast, by the way, but that's another story. But anyway, yeah, it was on a cradle sitting behind this, Tom's Burn Down Cafe is the name of this restaurant. Well, it's not a restaurant, it's a bar. Literally used to be a restaurant bar. It burned down in the early 90s, and then they just opened it as this open air sort of artsy sort of dive bar type thing is what they I think call it. So the boat's back there, and I'm in the bar frantically searching for someone. It's crowded, and I was like, who owns this place? And I just was like on a mission, I just had tunnel vision. Yeah. But I was unsuccessful. I don't know who owns the boat. I put it on my YouTube. It's getting some views there. I'm hoping that, if people have seen these boats, or know where one is. If I could find one, I think I'd buy it. I really
you'd
would.
Scoop it up. Well, let me ask you though, because as someone who owns 2 boats right now, would you, if you found one of those for sale, would you scoop it up, or would you be like, all right, we got to sell one of these boats at least before we buy another one?
The price on those boats are so, unless you're over abroad, they're pretty. You can get them for pretty cheap. You know what I mean? So I think that I would
what's pretty cheap?
Well, the one that I almost
26 or 27 foot.
It's 26 feet. 26 feet. The one that was a sister ship that I almost bought five years ago. I found one out east. It had been dismasted in the Chesapeake, and I had it surveyed, and I couldn't find a trailer though. This is like December of 2020, and I couldn't find a trailer anywhere. Or if I found a trailer, I'd have to, wait for many months to get it.
Yeah.
You know how things were. I could have bought one brand new, in other words. But that guy, I was going to get that boat for under $5,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But it needs work. It needed work. It needed new keel bolts and otherwise. So they're really, it's like the Contessa. It's like they're built like a brick house, you know, they're like a tank.
Yeah.
There was not any crazing or cracking or anything in the fiberglass in the deck, in the hull, nothing.
Oh,
You know, it's
nice.
just the cleats are all like they're those foot long cleats that for this little 26-foot boat. And, you know, usually you'll see like evidence of cracking or crazing around the stanchions or none of that. But anyway, it didn't work out. I couldn't find the trailer. But what are you going to do? So, yeah, so that is, like I said, I can't describe the feeling other than I feel I was in tears when I saw that boat. And I was really upset to see the boat in the condition that it's in because it's definitely, well, the sticker said 2018. So on the registration.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, maybe the guy's in the middle of working on her, whoever owns this boat. Maybe they're doing some work on her. It had a tarp thrown over on the top of the cabin trunk. Maybe
Yeah, it's always
her.
kind of tough. It's almost when I see a boat that's, you know, completely derelict, like fully neglected, like sitting on a mooring somewhere with stays missing and just water in the bilge. In a way, it's almost like seeing an animal that's being neglected. It's like, oh man,
it
that's
is
so sad.
It definitely evokes an emotional sort of response in me when I see that, and I feel the same way. I really do. But yeah, it was pretty wild. Like I said, what are the chances?
I know. Well, now you know where it is at least. And,
well, it could be my boat from when I was a kid, right? Like,
yeah,
it could be literally, or she could literally be like my.
Because you said they only imported like 15 of these things.
Yeah,
wow,
that's what I was told. I don't know if that's necessarily. It's very difficult to find information out because.
Once they go out of business, right?
Yeah, I have the whole identification number too. I tracked down, like when my dad traded that boat in, he got an Erickson 27, I think, out of Chicago.
Nice.
At Larson Marine. And I contacted Larson Marine 5 years ago because I was trying to get more information on our boat, my boat as a kid. And I have like the HIN, but I don't think maybe back then they did still imprint them on the stern, you know, they usually have the HIN on the starboard side of the transom.
Yeah.
But I think they also usually put it some other place on the boat somewhere too, but I don't, that might vary manufacturer.
Usually, I think it's required to be like a permanent part of the hull. I know the West Sail Company used to stamp it right on the stern. I think when Mighty Sparrow was repainted before I owned it, they basically sanded it off. So I took a Dremel and I ground it in inside the lazarette into the fiberglass, so it's like there. But I think or at least the official number, like the Coast Guard number, that one's on a big placard or placard in the engine room and all that sort of stuff. But
but that number's different. I mean, that's
that one's a registration number essentially,
right? With the Coast Guard, right?
Well,
is that what it is?
Well, let me. It's that's where the Coast Guard gives you your official number, and then I think on the regular, you know, the Coast Guard sheet, the title or whatever it is, then it'll have the hull number as well. It has all the information as best as it can be, I guess. But
documentation, they call that, right? Your boat's documented or something. I just now thought of that.
As we get close to an hour and we got to wrap this up, I did want to ask though, so what do you think it is right now? And this is going right back to what we started talking about in the beginning. Why do you think all the prices of all the boats are just absolutely rock bottom at this point? Because when I went on Yacht World, all I'm seeing, at least, you know, in the West Sail area, is price drop. And and it's like, where was this situation when I was buying a West Sail? That would have been fantastic.
No, I know, right? Same for me, totally. No, it is. I've been, like I said, keeping an eye on the market, and especially I was looking at compact models and keeping an eye on the price drops there. There have been some boats that have moved, but I've noticed that if you want to move a boat, it seems to me the ones that move are the ones that show well in the pictures and also have been priced priced for where the market is. So like for people, like for example, there's some people that I've seen list boats and the prices they're asking, I'm like, wow, I don't think that these people have an idea of where the market is right now. They're still thinking it's COVID pricing, right? And that they're going to make hand over fist on their boat. And it's just not like that. You know, there's just, I'm not seeing any evidence from, and like I said, I check at least twice a day. I check in the morning. I'm really obsessed with it. I check twice in the morning and in the evening before I go to bed. And yeah, for sure, it's the boats that show well and the boats that are priced, they're priced right, you know, right for where the market is right now. Otherwise, your boat's going to sit, and the longer it sits because you priced it too high, or you're not presenting it really in a light that it's, you know, makes the boat show its shiniest, sort of, so to speak. Your boat's going to sit there and people are going to be like, why has that boat been on the market for so long? You know, something must be wrong with it.
Well, and
you know,
it's totally costing you money the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of the things that I think, you know, you really have to look at. Okay, so what is it going to cost for me to have this boat hauled out in this yard for a year? And you add that up and you're like, okay, well, maybe I should subtract that from the asking price or something like that. I mean, I have always, the only big things I've ever sold would be like, I sold my car, you know, 10, 12 years ago. And I remember looking at like the Blue Book value and I was like, oh, okay. And I think I priced it like $1,000 under that because I just wanted to get rid of it. I wanted to basically part with this car and move forward. And my time was worth that extra, losing that $1,000 to be able to, and because I sold it within like a day. I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's already gone. This is great. But
well, you definitely have to look at things like that, like how much extra you're spending on storage or even like winterizing or, you know, summerizing, whatever. All those things factor in. Some people will say in their ad, well, if I don't get my price, then, you know, I'll just keep it. It's like, well, then you're really not a motivated seller. So what I would also say is if you're not really a motivated seller, don't just put an ad out there that says, I'm just looking to see what, you know, putting out some feelers to see if anybody's interested.
Yeah.
You never see those sorts of ads. It's very rare, at least, that I see somebody like the boat's gone the next day. It's like more like that ad is still popping up weeks or months later, you know?
Right.
So it's just, I don't know. It's just, if you really want to sell the boat, you know, you have to be committed to, you know, pricing it right and, you know, look at the market. Like, so if you are looking at a Catalina 28, for example, look on Yachtword where the brokers, what they say, how much it is. Look on Facebook to see if you can find one, or Craigslist or eBay or whatever, to see what for sale by owners are listing. And I can tell you on, for example, a Catalina 28, because I did look at this last night, on Yacht World, there's 3 that I found that were all over different parts of the country, and they're all pretty much the same price. So I think if you're not sure what to sell your boat for, go to those sources and see what other people might be selling them for, and then consider what their boat looks like compared to what your boat looks like, or compare amenities. This has an inboard, which is always more desirable than an outboard, right, in a cruising boat. You know, and you can factor all that into finding out, you know, where you're comfortable pricing your boat fairly according to market and also according to what you get for it. Like as someone who would buy it, like what sort of deal they'd be getting for those features that the boat has. So it is pretty, just some things to consider because you don't want to have it out there a long time because it does get sort of pigeonholed as something's wrong with that boat.
The price depreciates. Is that the right word? Depreciate?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. As just sitting in a boatyard with the sun beaming down on it, the teak starts to go and the paint starts to fade and all these things start to weather. And so, you know, enough time passes and you got to like replace things for a boat that you're trying to sell. So I definitely see that. And I think the golden rule though is, you know, you're not trying to make money selling a boat. You're trying to lose as little as possible. And that's across the board.
Exactly.
Yeah. Boats are like the worst investment.
and I do think too,
as far as money goes.
Oh, yeah. And this time of year, people think, oh, yeah, okay, you know, it's not boating season. We're getting out of boating season, so they can't get as much money. And then they'll take the boat off the market. And then next March, they'll list it again, and they list it for a higher price. if you're like me and you watch the ads, you'll be like, yep, I remember they have that boat listed for $10,000 last, November, and now they're asking 15 just because it's sailing season.
Right.
Know.
Interesting.
Just, there's a whole psychology.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, and it's been interesting to see because like Trout the Landfish, he sold his Cape Dory. He was able to do that pretty quick. And then
yes.
Brett and Marissa, I haven't checked in with them, but they were selling their Valiant 32, I think.
They are?
Yeah,
really?
they did 2 seasons on it, and they were just looking for a little something else to do. And so it's interesting that I know personally quite a few people that have sold their boats or are selling them. And then I also know I'd say like half of the cruisers that I know are selling and half of the cruisers are out cruising still. So kind of interesting. Yeah. Definitely a very different dynamic than just a few years ago when it was like, totally. Let's go, everybody. Let's go out and let's live our dream and do all this. And, things change, but at least a lot of people got to go out and they gave it a shot and they had their adventures. And I think that's kind of the important thing. And
better to have tried than to not have tried at all. Right.
Yep. And for anybody that's kind of interested in it, right now is a great time to buy.
Yeah, that's you're absolutely right. It's definitely a buyer's market right now for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, and I want to give you a chance. Where is your boat listed right now? Your Compact 25.
So I actually so some really other great websites. Sailboatlistings.com. Sailboatlistings.com is the one that I think is the really good one for a person who's really, I don't want to say a serious sailor, but people who are more,
they want the details. Yeah.
Okay. That's where I had. Yes.
Well, I'll put a link
there.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha.
Less tire kickers.
Well, we call them keel kickers.
Oh, keel kickers. Yes.
We always had a lot of keel kickers come into the boatyard because there's always a few boats for sale and stuff and mulling around. That's totally it. Well, and
that's what I would recommend. And that's where my boats are.
I'll put a link. If you send me that, I'll put a link in the description of the episode so that people can check it out. And
I will do that for sure.
Well,
Jerome,
thank you so much. Yeah, this was a blast.
I love talking to you. I could talk to you forever, as always. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share sort of my reflections on this whole selling a boat thing.
Yeah,
how that rolls out.
Like I said, you have far more experience than I do, and it's always interesting to sort of get the take on somebody who's owned quite a few different boats and is in the process currently and stuff. Yeah. And side note, congratulations on getting the podcast out on all the normal podcast platforms and everything. Just if you haven't listened, it's Passages from the Heart. And it's a great show. Your most recent one was that Paul Trammell again?
Yes, I had Paul on the show like 2-3 weeks ago, but there is still a little thing where there's 2 shows coming up. So I just wanted to clarify to listeners. The one that says just Passages from the Heart, that is just like an attempt that I had to try to get on, right. And then I messed up or something. So the one that's really the official is Passages from the Heart podcast. The word podcast is part of the name. So you'll see. It also has all 18 or 19 episodes. I'm at 19 episodes now, which is really exciting.
Very cool.
The other one only has like 2. So the
one which with 2 episodes. Is which,
yeah. I thought they would have deleted it. They said they did, but for whatever reason, it's not all gone yet. But Passages from the Heart podcast.
Very cool.
Thank you so much, Jerome, for your help to help me get on there too. By the way, that's why I'm there, is because of all of your guidance and support.
No problem. Oh, it was my pleasure. All right, Chelle, thank you so much for coming on.
Okay,
and
buddy.
Until next time.
Okay, until next time. Fair winds.